Alright, let's get this over with. What? Affliction just isn't my favorite spec. Don't get me wrong, it's super good at the moment, and with the upcoming demonology nerfs, it could very well become the top spec for warlocks in the future patches. Plus, I don't really know how much destruction can hold on to its amazing chaos ball damage. So yeah, stay tuned, because in today's video we will be discussing talents, rotation, gear, and everything that you need for Affliction Warlock in Raids and Mythic Plus dungeons. Before we go into the deets of Affliction, a short disclaimer. This video focuses more on the basics and acts as a refresher for Warlock fans that haven't kept up with Affliction. Since our channel focuses a lot on covering as many specs humanly possible, we cannot gear every spec to the teeth and do high mythic keys. On to the talents. First for raiding, and really the difference will be minor when we will look at the dungeon setup. Deathbolt on the first row. Unfortunately, there just isn't a good alternative here. Deathbolt is also part of why Affliction has amazing single target damage, since it dictates our rotation to a considerable degree. Second row, Absolute Corruption. The reason we take this one is mainly because of a specific Azerite trait we will discuss in a minute. It also helps in AoE situations, since refreshing dots takes up a lot of GCDs when we have multiple targets, and Corruption doing more damage just makes sense. There is an alternative for patchwork style fights like Grong, where you will take Siphon Life. Siphon Life is the go-to when you are just fighting one target. But since the raid has a majority of fights with adds, keep Absolute Corruption as a default. Next up is the utility role. For the sake of consistency, I will recommend Burning Rush. I personally tried playing with Demon Skin, which gives you really good sustain, but the lack of on-demand mobility starts to feel really uncomfortable. Burning Rush, take it. Level 60 row, Phantom Singularity. It has the most DPS output, synergizes well with Deathbolt, and complements one of our major weaknesses, which is AoE. Level 75 is another utility row. These types of rows can be adjusted to your playstyle, but as far as raiding is concerned, Demonic Circle is really the only one you can actually make good use out of. Level 90 tier, Hunt provides the most DPS output on the row. It's a good cooldown, you can essentially have 100% uptime on it, synergizes well with Deathbolt, and well, what's not to like? Last row, Dark Soul Misery is the best option. It's essentially a DPS cooldown that you will work into your rotation. It gives 30% haste, which is massive. Now to the Mythic Plus talents. I will just discuss what you need to pick, since most of the options remain the same as for raiding. I would recommend simming yourself, since the strength of the talents change depending on your Azerite traits. The ideal talent you want to switch to are Writhe in Agony on the second row and Sow the Seeds on the fourth. I've been looking at the top Affliction locks for Mythic Plus, and this is what they're going with. Writhe in Agony is really good for adds with the extra stacks, mainly because it will work really well with an Azerite trait that I will be talking about down the line. So the Seeds is also good in large pools, since we already have very little AoE potential, and buffing up Seed of Corruption is one way to improve that. However, the Absolute Corruption build that I use in raids is seeming a lot better for me in a dungeon scenario, mainly because the traits I have are syncing with that build, and they also made it smoother to play. Test out both if you like, and see which one performs better, because simming is good to establish a point of reference, but you will almost never be able to pull off the simmed number, since the math doesn't calculate human error. I really dislike repeating the same old, so I will say it once for the last time in this video. The BFA system can only be min-maxed if you sim yourself. Whatever I say or recommend, take it as a guideline, but if you want every little bit of damage extra, sim yourself for talents, gear, stats, everything basically. For stats, the general accepted priority is as follows: Mastery and Haste at the top, with Haste better for raids and Mastery better for dungeons, and AoE in general. Follow them up with crit and versatility and intellect at the bottom. With my gear, talents and Azerite, my stats are simming like this. And this is to show you that things can change depending on your character. These are my raid stats. As for my AoE scenario, this is what my stats are looking like there. As you can see, a bit different than the norm, and I will use my numbers when gearing up. Stats are influenced by procs that give, say, big haste chunks or intellect chunks. So whenever you get such items, trinkets or Azerite, your stats will change. Speaking of trinkets, this is a graph showing the best trinkets if they were all at the same eye level. These ones are simming the best for single target scenarios, either raid bosses or tyrannical dungeon bosses. We can also check a graph for AoE situations, like heavy adds in raids or normal Mythic Plus situations. The top ones are filled in with World Quest and World Bosses trinkets. I won't recommend going for these, since it would be very unlikely you would get them at the high enough eye level to contest with the raid and Mythic Plus drops. If you do get them, however, props to you, they might very well be your best in slot. As such, the ones I recommend you get for both single target and AoE are 3 specific trinkets. Balefire Branch, which is actually one of the best in the game for most specs. This one drops from Waycrest Manor. Do Waycrest Manor keys, or it might even drop on your weekly chest. Get it at a high enough eye level and chances are you won't have to replace it for a very long time. The second one is Crest of Paku, that drops from the Conclave in the Zara lore. This is good overall, but excels more in single target scenarios. And lastly, Incandescent Sliver from Opulence. Also very good all around. Getting these trinkets shouldn't be too hard since you can actually target them. But like I said, you can get very good trinkets from other sources as well. Now to Azerite traits. Luckily for Affliction, the traits are very balanced as opposed to other specs. Looking at you, Demonology. If you want to be nitpicky, you can check bloodmallet.com and see what traits are mathematically better. This is a look at how the traits are for single target once you start to stack them. It's also different to what Mythic Warlocks actually use, and we will discuss that. Also, for dungeons, we get this ranking. Sudden Onset is simming really well, and it's probably why Wrath and Agony talent works so well. And since I don't have a good Sudden Onset piece myself, Wrath and Agony isn't simming that well for me. Despite all these numbers, I will talk about a few traits that I recommend you take. They work amazing in raids and also super good in dungeons. Remember, Affliction is mainly a single target spec. Once you build strictly for AoE, you start losing a lot of boss damage. The first trait I will suggest is Racking Brilliance, which works well for all scenarios. Intellect procs can never go wrong. Inevitable Demise is the second one. This trait is very interesting. For one thing, it has amazing single target damage once you actually get the stacks. But also the stacks generate way faster in AoE since more targets contribute to agony ticks. Even after the nerf, it's still one of the most popular traits out there. Sudden Onset is another one you can aim for. This bad boy helps with on-demand damage on adds like the bot on Grong. Synergizes well with Wrath and Agony talent. Lastly, the Cascading Calamity trait is essentially a haste buff. Stacked it can reach good numbers, but will still alter your rotation slightly. It's that part of the video, guys! No, not the rotation, that's in about 10 seconds. This is the part of the video where we tell you how much we want you to like and subscribe to our channel. We are at the mercy of YouTube's algorithm system, and we really appreciate every little bit of support that you can give us so we can grow and be big and make our YouTube dream a reality. The rotation for Affliction will change a bit depending on the Azerite traits you have. I will go over the basics so you can get an understanding, and then I'll explain the exceptions so as to not flood you guys with too much stuff. For the opener, Precast Hunt. Follow it up with Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life. Cast Phantom Singularity, cast Dark Soul, cast Unstable Affliction until you run out of shards or your target has 5 UAs on it. Summon Dark Glare. By doing this, you extend the duration of your dot on the target, plus it deals a crap ton of damage. And only then cast Death Bolt. This opener is nitpicky because Death Bolt is nitpicky and every wrong GCD or delay will shave a lot of its damage. Now onto the priority for single targets. Trinkets and racials are the first on the list. Keep Haunt on cooldown, maintain Agony on the target, maintain Siphon Life, maintain Corruption, which won't be hard if you have Absolute Corruption instead of Siphon Life, maintain Phantom Singularity, keep Dark Soul on cooldown, don't cap on shards, so use an Unstable Affliction when you reach 5 shards. The next one on the priority list is to not let UA drop off. If you are using Cascading Calamity, cast your refreshed UA before the last one falls so you can maintain the buff. Always cast a UA before Death Bolts if possible. Keep Death Bolt on cooldown. And fill in with Shadow Bolts. If Dark Glare has less than a minute before coming off cooldown, you start saving shards so you can have 5, but don't cap them, stay around 4 to 5 shards. A few seconds before Dark Glare becomes available, you change the priority. The amount of time you wait is based off of your haste, so practice and see where you are. The priority becomes like your opener again. You use Dark Soul first, Unstable Affliction 5 times or until you run out of shards, then Phantom Singularity. If any UA is dropped off, cast again until you have 5 on the target or again no shards. Then summon Dark Glare and then use Death Bolt. A few notes here to make. If you have Inevitable Demise, you can start channeling Life Drain when you go over 40 stacks and you won't have to refresh any dots in the next 5 seconds. If the boss is dying soon, Drain Life is an option if you have above 20 stacks. Before going into the AoE priority, make sure you always save shards before fighting a boss in a dungeon. The priority is simple. Keep Agony up on only 8 targets maximum. Keep Corruption up though on as many as you can. Since you will run Sow of the Seeds, refresh Corruption with Seeds of Corruption when you have 3 or more targets. Lastly, keep UA up on as many targets as you can. When choosing enchants, go with Mastery for both rings and weapon. Gems get Mastery in all slots unless Intellect is simming well for you, which in most cases it won't. When doing dungeons or AoE raid bosses, switch the Mastery stuff for haste stuff. That's it, simple. For the flask, get the Intellect one, as well as the Intellect Battle Potion. And for food, get a Feast, or Mastery for Cleave/AoE, which is most of the raid, and Haste for strict single target. If you're already here, you're probably into demons as well. If that's the case, go check out our Demonology guide. It's easy to pick up and a blast to play. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter for future notifications of all the upcoming videos, guides, and more on our channel Marcelian Online. Thanks for watching the video, and I'll catch you guys next time.